Hello and welcome to the Dive Season 6, Episode 12. Mark's on his phone, so screw him. He's out.
True.
What's up, Azael? How's your week going?
It's going great. You're off to I don't know if I want to say aggressive or peppy. You know, you got a little bit.
I'm still a little bitter from the bet paying off and not really. He just scarfed down all the hot sauce. Nothing happened.
Was that just last week?
No.
That was like 2 weeks ago.
I hold that shit close to my heart, Mark.
Be hearing about this like 5 years from now. Like, remember that time I won a bet? I don't know why your voice changed.
Every time I'm cranky in the morning, I'll just be like, I'm holding over the grudge.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll stop eating hot food, so I'll
have to win
whimper
a
more.
New bet. Exactly. Get a new bet.
We were talking about new bets already, so
we've got some ideas for bets.
I will say, tickets are on sale now for the Houston Finals.
Really, you say that?
This is our real sponsor, is the LCS Finals in Houston. Tickets are on sale now, and check out the pinned tweet on the LCS official Twitter account to find those links.
I'm super excited for it. I know all the playoff tickets already like sold out long ago. So if you guys want to get tickets, want to come out to an event, definitely go to that. That's gonna be really fun. It's in NRG Stadium, I want to say,
yes.
in Texas. That should be really, really cool. One of the biggest events we've gone to. So hopefully we can sell a bunch of tickets, pack it all up, have a lot of fun. It's gonna be really good, man. I can't believe that after 2 years, finally fans are gonna be back in only a couple days. It's Wednesday right now. Wednesday morning we're recording this. They'll be back here on Saturday. So not too long to go after a very, very long journey.
Yeah.
And so many fans that was are telling me that they haven't actually gotten to go to the LCS studio because they became fans over the last 2 years. So many pros and coaches were like, I've never seen fans in the studio before.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really, really special weekend.
Yeah, I was talking about this last night too, but we've had to adapt so much, casting in COVID at home and then casting here with no fans and stuff. I actually have started making more noticeable like reactions to plays and noises and stuff because there's no fans. But that's one thing I'm thinking about. I actually won't have to anymore because we're gonna have real thick crowd noise, which is real thick.
Thickum crowd.
It is like it's so much better.
No, I know what you mean.
Anytime I hear thick, I just think of that, you know, that coffee pasta, like the progress looking great. You're looking real thick, swole, you know, like keep me updated with more pics. That's all I can ever think of.
Get those thick fans in the audience, baby.
Fans looking real thick, you know.
Busting seats. I know what you mean though, where like when the crowd roars behind you, like it's just easier to hit that like high.
Well, that's why I was just thinking, I'm like, man, are we about to like blow out our voices? Are we just like getting too excited, you know? Because it's been years of just casting in an empty studio with no noise, no background thing, you know? So yeah, you do have to put on more of the energy yourself, right? You have to go a bit bigger because there's no like kind of background volume to like fill it up and make it
First
sound
blood, I'm
nice.
going
Just wait for those war cheers. Everyone will be.
Nope. I've had so many people message and they're like, please, for the love of God, yes, I'm glad fans are back, but no war cheers.
TSM chants, war cheers, random call outs. The funniest thing to me is always when there's just one, not when it's frequent, because that gets obnoxious, but like at one point during the day, someone yells out this one weird random thing that like somehow gets picked up by the mic and everyone laughs. Like it's just like, those are just like those little moments that like make a broadcast so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the players handle it too. You know, if people are playing nervous, right? Because it is a very different experience when you sit down and you look out and there's hundreds of people, you know, sitting there in the studio watching you. It can feel a little bit more pressure, and a lot of these guys haven't experienced that. So, talking to some of the teams, it was interesting. Like last weekend when I was here, you know, if you're on the second set, you do your COVID tests and stuff, and you're kind of here waiting with a lot of the teams. And so I was chatting with a bunch of people, and people were saying, you know, that they wouldn't be surprised if there's like a first round upset just based off of potentially, you know, like people playing differently with a crowd.
So this is actually an interesting topic, and I got questions on this last night also. So I'm going to pose it to you because I already gave my answer. I'm not going to reveal my answer to see if you guys give the same one because I feel like if I explain it, then it'll
we'll
be
all
pretty
agree
similar.
with you because your logic.
But which
is just,
team?
His logic is unassailable. Yeah. He's got thick logic.
I got the
Dude,
thick
his
logic,
brain, the
baby.
folds of his brain are
It's
thick.
thick,
He's got
dude.
the thickest brain.
Which
folds.
team is gonna benefit the most
Team Liquid.
from having because from having fans in the studio?
Team Liquid is the boomer team. Of course, they're going to benefit the most, right? You know, you just immediately you think about.
Nice, Mark's got another answer. I don't care about yours because that's the answer I gave, and I gave all of that same reasoning.
Well, you didn't give it on this show, Kobe, so I get to give the reason.
Watch my stream to get it. It's behind a dono wall. Dono wall my logic.
You have to be a tier 3 sub to access Kobe.
Don't they gonna do something like that with Twitter where there's like
super followers?
Yeah,
some people already have those. I don't think my account has it yet though.
Oh, have you guys downvoted anyone on Twitter yet? I see the downvote button. I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
I haven't actually seen that.
I thought
on mobile I see the downvote button.
I thought on one because I accidentally was like flipping through and I accidentally clicked downvote and I was like, oh, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'll undo my downvote.
That's funny.
I wonder what my first downvote's gonna be.
I don't know, but I don't have access to the.
Anyways,
yet.
please elaborate.
Well, I mean, we all know, right? TL has been a team that has a tremendous amount of experience. There's no fresh player on TL.
They have all played in front of audiences already.
Many times. So they are the best for it. EG may be the team that gets hurt the most by it potentially. You know, like they have a lot of veterans, but also, you know, two of their most important players, like big carries, have no experience with it. You know, JoJo and Danny. C9 has a number of guys who wouldn't have been able to ever play in front of a crowd. Maybe Berserker at some point maybe did, but like. You know, Winsome, Berserker, like they never have.
Winsome was Berserker was understudy, so
yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, but it's who's going to benefit the most. I feel like Team Liquid would be least affected in a negative way. If you pose it like that, I would agree. But there are some people who like in the moment thrive off the energy and like go extra hard.
Yeah.
And like I feel like
Whippo
maybe. But I do feel like EG, Danny. He hasn't played in front of a crowd really, but in playoffs last year, in summer, he was so clutch. Like he had that pentakill. Like I feel like he could be one of those players who like in a team fight when the crowd's going crazy, like just like plays better. I can see JoJo being that way. And then you talk about the veterans, like, okay, Impact, Vulcan, and even Inspired a little bit. Like they've been there before. I'm not really worried about their mental being boomed by like, oh my God, people are watching me. So I think they're more volatile. Like I could see a world where it does negatively affect JoJo and Danny, but I also see just how they approach the game already, just like feeding into that in a positive way.
Yeah.
So maybe the most beneficial, but also maybe negative. But Team Liquid, I just don't see being phased either way. Like they're just going to do the same thing.
It's always interesting, right? Because it's one of those things that you just don't know how people are going to react until they get there. I think a lot of people are really nervous, and then the game starts, and then it's like, well, I've done this fucking 50,000 times, and it just kind of becomes muscle memory.
Especially in the LCS studio. Like Houston is a different story when like it's just a totally different environment, but they've played on this stage now for at least 2 months, basically. Like, yeah, the crowd noise will be different, but like once you're locked in on your computer screen, like it probably won't affect.
I've definitely heard specific players say like, and teammates of specific players call them out as being like really affected by nerves and really affected by fans. So I know that there are definitely some of those super negative cases too. Yeah. And sometimes those stories have really followed some players too, as far as like Scrim God types of stories have really like, it's not exactly the same because yeah, you're right. They have played on the stage, but it's like another level of
it just is like, yeah. Playoffs pressure, like we're talking about fans, but just like, oh, lose and we're eliminated type pressure does the same thing as well.
Yeah, this is something that follows people in every single game, and I definitely experience it a lot as a pro and playing WoW. Like there'd be people that I would play against online. I would think they're so hard to beat, or maybe they like farm us, right? Like you get slammed, and then you play them at a tournament, and it's just like you're playing a whole different player, right? They just don't play with the same confidence.
Is the add-ons a big difference?
Add-ons are a big difference for sure. Usually back in the day, people all practiced with no add-ons because they weren't allowed. So like going into it, but definitely that was a big factor. But a lot of people just made way more mistakes. They get like, I felt like people got way more tunnel vision, so they like had less awareness of what else is going on around them. I think that's true when I saw a lot of people play StarCraft 2 as well, as far as pro, like watching these guys practice and watching them play, you know, in an event. They're just hyper focused on one thing, like the adrenaline gets pumping, and it's like almost like too much for some people. So I think that can definitely happen in League as well, where people either do one of two things, they go to like one extreme or the other. they start getting a little bit, like a little bit nervous and they go super defensive, or they start getting really pumped up and they start getting super aggressive. And that can be bad too. It's just like I think generally you just want to play as similar to how you do in practice as you can. You know what I mean? Like you just want to play normal. You don't need to be like doing anything extra crazy.
So not only is it the first time for a lot of players, but like you said, for a lot of fans, like I don't think have a good perspective on how many people churn in and out of the game. And within 2 years, like a not negligible portion of the fan base, this is going to be their first time watching with not only online, but in person as well. Like, so there was a Reddit thread that went up that was asking about any advice for a first time in-person LCS fan for Houston. And I had misread the thread and I thought they were just asking about LCS starting this weekend. And I answered that on Hotline League, but I was like, actually, that's just good advice. Like, do you guys have any advice to give to first time coming to the LCS studio fans? Like, oh, make sure to get the Heimerdinger's nachos or tots or whatever, Wear deodorant is a big one that was on the Reddit thread.
Great advice.
Yeah. Shower in the morning.
I would say.
Go ahead.
I mean, just like if you want to get photos and stuff, I know a lot of people love getting photos. Most of the pros and casters and stuff are all going to be are friendly and happy to do it. Just ask people nicely, treat people like humans. That would be kind of my advice. Sometimes I think people act a little bit strangely with pros and stuff, and maybe are like a little bit too crazy about it. But just treat them like regular people. Be kind, be courteous, and people are pretty happy to take pictures and say hi and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like it's not really a crazy like environment or scenario to me. So I don't know if I'm the best to give like advice for a first time viewer.
Yeah,
because I've literally been in gaming and professional gaming for the majority of my adult life. So I don't even know if I can like take the perspective of a new fan. Maybe it would be something around like recommending the different foods or whatever that are actually
check out
there.
Sawtail later.
But like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to a public event.
Some people like coming early and seeing the pros show up and stuff.
We used to have tailgates, but I don't know if we're doing tailgates. And I would definitely recommend coming early for the tailgates if there are. All the teams would like set up these booths and there would be games and they'd be giving out free stuff.
Yeah, that's really
there was merch. There was like Golden Guardians did boba. That was super fun. So if there is a tailgate, yeah, scout that out and see if you need to come early. But if not, like the crowds for LCS have always been really like everybody is a really nice person and they're all gamers. So it's that like calm vibe basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're doing fans out of that. Used to be the other thing was between games after they play, the teams go outside, new fan meets. I don't know if they're doing that again. I don't think they are.
That was such like an integral part, I felt like, of the LCS experience. So it's kind of sad that some of that stuff is gone.
Yeah, with just like the COVID concerns, like the last thing you want to do is catch COVID in playoffs. So I get why it's not there, but hopefully that part comes back, because it was always funny because people would be like, oh, what game is next? Like, do I go out and try and meet this team? Because then I might miss like the beginning of this next game. It's like, oh, Immortals plays next. All right, I'm going for the fan picture.
It's a shade.
I don't know. I tried to pick one team that didn't make playoffs.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Definitely let us know your guys' experiences at LCS, because we're a bit out of touch, I think, with the first time fan experience, because it's been a long time for most of us. MSI 2022 announced it is going to South Korea. They're gonna have fans as well, which I think is also really exciting. Even though we are not going to be there, presumably. It's really fun to just hear the crowd and to see the crowd and stuff. I think even, as a viewer, or even if you were casting but you're not there, to be able to hear the crowd and stuff, I think is really, really cool. So that's going to be exciting. We finally escaped from Iceland, having an event somewhere other than Iceland for the first time, it feels like, in a long time. So things slowly creeping back towards normalcy a bit, but it'll be interesting to see how everything pans out in Korea, because I know that there's like insane amounts of new COVID cases in Korea. So that always makes me a little bit nervous about like, oh, is it going to get canceled? It's something like 345,000 new cases per day.
See, what they're doing now is that everyone's getting it, so they'll have the antibodies in time for MSI. The whole country is preparing for MSI.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds smart. I don't know how bad it is now. I stopped keeping up. It was like 2 weeks ago when I'm aware that it hit like really critical peaks, and like LCK was forced to go online and stuff for playoffs for a bit, I think. So I don't know if they're still in remote play or what. I haven't kept up with that like controversy after the first like week or two.
The thing that I thought of first when I saw this, I was just sad that we don't actually go to the events live, because Korea Worlds, the 2015 one, is probably my favorite time ever. The lights are popping off. We got a light show here, mid-dive, baby. Woo!
Well, I just heard something swinging. I was like,
yeah, they're swinging around and they're flashing too.
It's not just that they're going
colors. They're blinded. Don't look. Watch out. They're pointing down at us. Please.
What's funny is I'm watching.
Please disengage the light show.
I'm watching on the program.
No one on program probably even hears it.
I can see some of them.
They wouldn't
see
hear
a little bit. Let's just keep going.
I'm down to keep going.
It's fine.
I just mean, I was gonna say it, funnily enough, watching is like, it doesn't look as extreme
as it feels
on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, it probably doesn't look as extreme, but like it's hitting us like right in the face. So it's really funny.
Yeah. When you hear the noise, I just start hearing all these things swirling around up there. I was like, oh, is something about to fall on Kobe's head?
Anyway.
Was it for the that's the bad noise. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Fine. That's when you.
Okay. That's when you duck and
That's
cover.
when you tuck and roll. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a sturdy desk.
So 2015 Worlds,
30 desk.
Kobe.
I'll be fine. That was my favorite one ever. Honestly, that is, I think, my favorite trip that I ever took for work. That's the one.
I thought you were just gonna say period. Work is a big caveat.
It is a big caveat, but I only have one trip besides that was not for work that beats it out.
Oh,
that was my European.
So it's your number 2 trip.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It only gets beat by the post-college European backpacking trip that was over a month long. So that's OP. But we went to Taipei, Singapore, Busan, and Seoul, and it was a month long, going to every stop. Oh my God, it just makes me so jealous to go back to Korea. I want to go back so badly. The internet is insane there. All the people are so nice.
That's why Kobe loved it. There you go.
Internet number
one. He's like, this was the second best trip of my life. I had 7 ping. 7.
Fiber everywhere.
They were so nice to foreigners, though. Like everywhere I go, we get invited in for free. Oh, do you want to try this? You get free tables and stuff. Like, oh my God. Anyways.
It's back in Korea.
How you feel about Korea? You've been to Korea before.
I have been a couple times. I had a really, really great trip in Korea as well. I definitely loved it. First time I went was a long time ago. It was for like a WCG or something like that, and stayed for a couple extra weeks. And Korea is a lot of fun. So I would definitely love and that internet though. We actually did one of the things that really stood out to me that was really fun. I remember was from this event was we went to a PC Bong after this tournament, and we went with like teams from a bunch of different countries, and most of us couldn't even really like communicate because like we didn't have like a default language, or maybe like some of them had like tiny bit English. But there was a bunch of us, and we went to this PC cafe, and we all did like WoW Arena, right, 3v3s, and we just mixed and matched the teams every single game, and we like just kept like changing teams after every game and playing against each other, and you like couldn't even really talk to the people you're playing with and stuff. But it was some of the most fun I've ever had gaming. It was really really fun. Just went, and there was like, I don't know, 12 or 15 of us or something, and just doing mix and match teams. We played for like hours and hours. It was so fun.
The 3 big things: Korean barbecue, PC bongs, and karaoke. Those were all the big events that we would do multiple times each week.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Santorin, LCS news. Not really news. He's been talking about like they did an AMA, and he also Gabby did like a long form, or excuse me, Emily was talking about had a long speech about like his history and like how good he's been and stuff. And one of the things he talked about was he has had a number of ups and downs in his career and like rough patches, and a couple of them he's seriously considered quitting during.
Yeah, he said there were 3 to 5 times throughout his career that he felt like just quitting, giving up, going back to school, or doing streaming or something like that. The main ones he cited were TSM 2015 Worlds, after not qualifying there, and then the multiple times that he failed to promote back into the LCS and didn't qualify. And then also he cited the health issues this last time around with Team Liquid as well.
Yeah. He also said he's still dealing with those a little bit. He like said he had to go off his meds for some testing at one point, and I don't know. Still sounds like he's not like fully cleared yet, but that things have been under control, which is cool.
Yeah.
The thing I found really interesting from this was thinking back on his Gold Coin United days, trying to qualify into the LCS. Loco Doco was his coach back then. And at one point, he was like trying to hype him up for an interview, I think it was, or something, or he was on some stream. And he was like, if Faker is a 10 out of 10 in mechanics, Santorin is a 9 out of 10. And everyone ripped Loco apart for this. Like, it was the biggest meme that, like, this amateur jungler in NA has 9 out of 10 mechanics worldwide. Like, good joke. And what I was thinking about it again, but like, now that he has 4 straight finals appearances, he's cemented himself as one of the best junglers in NA history. Is there a little bit of truth to like this claim that Loco made that everyone thought was a big joke back then, but like maybe he just knew better because he actually knew him?
Well, mechanics to me are, I mean, it is technically like your key presses, but a lot of mechanics, when people think of really good mechanics, like the most cool Faker plays, like, you know, his Riven play, absolutely like styling on Cassiopeia, and, you know, a lot of it is actually him thinking about what the opponent is going to do. And then he has good mechanics to put to press his keys, but it's a lot about predicting what they're going to do and basically countering it before they do it. So then when they press their keys, they look like idiots, and you completely style on them. And
had them downloaded.
Exactly. Those are the types of plays that really make people go wow. And I think maybe it is, yeah, it's still a bit of a stretch because I haven't had as many of like those wow plays. He certainly does have very good mechanics.
So here was the point that Azael and I were talking about before you came to makeup before, that I find very interesting. So it's a lot of outplays that people give credit for mechanics for, but I think consistency is actually one of the most important things for being a good mechanical player. And Santorin almost never Fs up mechanically. And I think that's a huge part of what this case you would make for him would be, because like Smithy, as great as he was, Smithy would miss his Sejuani ults or like have a oopsie Gragas moment. And like a lot of great players of all time had these moments, like the Yellow Star moment, like the X-Peke in the top, oh, he's too tanky, you know, like there are these hilarious moments. And you think of Santorin, and I know he has flubs at some point, but like never feels
incredibly consistent.
He is unbelievably consistent. You're never like, wow, that Sejuani gank was just bad, or like, oops, he just ulted them away from his team on Gragas. You're like, he almost never does this.
I definitely agree. Like, consistency is always good. Like, never having the 1 out of 100 like super fail flashes or super fail ultimates that loses you a team fight is definitely one aspect. But also the crazy pop off where you get every animation cancel correct, and you know you don't you know, fail any skill shots, anything is equally, actually it's probably more important in people's minds because that's what's going to stand out.
That's what sticks with you.
Like that's what's going to stick with you.
Another well executed flash Gragas body slam. No one's like, did you see that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess the next level of getting to a 10 mechanics though is not just a body slam flash, right? The next level of mechanics is I put my Q back here, the barrel is fermenting. As it's about to pop, I body slam, flash onto someone, ult them back into it, it explodes on them. Like, that is 10 out of 10 mechanics. Consistently doing body slam flash is actually not, I don't know if that's not the, I'm not pinning that all on your example, but like that's actually not.
You know, it's kind of the part of the discussion we were having was basically just the idea that it's like the flashy plays are things that people really remember, and I don't think there's a ton of those associated with Santorin. But honestly, a lot of like having really good mechanics is like, you know, just being extremely consistent, very clean with your key presses, like this type of thing. And a lot of it is not necessarily super flashy. And this is something I think we've talked about probably on the dive before, but it's something I believe to be really true in all games, is that most of what people associate of like being amazing at a game isn't actually what makes you amazing at a game. It's like most of being like at the very high level of being a pro is actually doing every basic thing correctly in the game, like almost every time. Right. And that's what most of the pros are able to do. When you think about like what actually makes a pro, like it's not what makes Faker, you know, is that he does all of that. Plus he has, you know, these highlight moments that really resonate. But what makes you maybe not Faker, but like a really good pro is you farm correctly every single time. You rarely ever miss CS. You rarely ever miss position. You don't ever shoot your skill shots the wrong way. You have quick reactions on like QSSing CC. You can reactively flash. Like you're never building correctly. Exactly. You're doing all these things that seem basic in isolation, but they almost never make a mistake. And if you almost never mess these things up, you do become a very top player in your role. And I think that's exemplified with Santorin, right? Yeah. Is that he is so consistent. He's rarely the reason this team ever loses. And I think he's shown so much resilience, because I think now people kind of look at him as like, oh yeah, he's a veteran. Like, he's always been good. Everyone always knew he was good. Like, he had to fight through, academy and stuff. And post TSM, I think his reputation kind of got a lot worse, and he had to really battle back. And has gotten to the point where, he wasn't even on a top team. He's on FlyQuest, and they make the finals there. And really, even after the back-to-back finals, only then did he finally get a chance to actually be on a top team to where he can actually win,
Yeah, that's the point of his post.
Yeah.
He has had to go through years and years of all of these points of that self-doubt. Should I just give it up? Oh my God, I failed to promote back to the LCS 3 times in a row. These sorts of things where it's like, should I just quit? Am I doomed to never move back up? Did I peak in 2015 when, even at Worlds where you get overwhelmed at Worlds, especially going to Worlds young and you're playing against all these very best players, that is for sure going to give you some self-doubt.
Yeah. I think it's an incredible story for him to be now.
Persevere.
Yeah, get through all that.
Is big.
And now, like we said, it's like, oh yeah, he's just one of the best junglers in NA. He's been that for a while. And it's like, well, there's a big gap in between there. The final thing I'll say is playstyle also is a big part of mechanical outplays. Yeah, if you just don't ever put yourself in a position to need to 1v3, you don't ever 1v3. And then people don't remember when you 1v3'd. But that doesn't mean that your mechanics are bad. It's just like Uzi never took a Vayne fight that he thought he couldn't win, and he killed himself a bunch. But then he has that one where he plays through the fight perfect. You're like, what a mechanical god! And then sometimes there's the Lissandra ulted you and killed you. And the decision making to put yourself in situations where you need to outplay, especially from the jungle position where you're like, I'm Trundle. I'm playing Lee Sin and I get some insects, but I'm not brush camping all the time. I think that's another big part.
I think it sounds like this ballooned to the bigger topic of just consistency versus peak performances.
Yeah.
And more things than just mechanics.
Exactly. Yeah. There's lots of stuff that goes into it, right? And kind of some of the stuff that I think you're talking about is risk versus reward, right? Because it's the truly craziest plays that you remember are always incredibly risky, and then the person performs perfectly and they're barely able to pull it off.
Well,
right?
and my point with that is that's not what mechanics really are when people.
But you need great mechanics.
You need
to be
mechanics
able
to do that. Yes, the only way you can outplay someone is pressing the buttons better. But that's not what I think mechanics really entail. There's a lot of other things, which was your point earlier.
Yep. It's really interesting. 12.6 is going to be the playoff patch. There was, I don't want to say drama, but there was,
there was drama.
There was some complaints about 12.6 being the patch and teams not having time to prepare. So I talked to a number of different teams. I talked to some of the people on the Riot side, to try to get some context on what was going on here. Because generally we only change patch when the teams want it, right? So I spoke to some people. Basically the TLDR, as far as I have understood it, is that teams talk to each other. They decided, hey, generally LCS, the playoffs ends a lot later. Ours ends much later than the other regions because we do lock-in, we do so on and so forth. We play more games. So they wanted to be on 12.6 for playoffs so that they would be less behind for MSI. So that gets basically voted on. They decide they're going to do 12.6 for playoffs. But this was with the caveat of from the Riot side, there was the statement that they thought 12.6 was going to be a small patch, right? 12.6 gets released. Some of the teams obviously don't agree that it is a small patch. They think it's pretty impactful. So some of the teams decide, hey, we actually don't want it to be on 12.6. We want it to be on 12.5B, which is what all the other regions are actually running it on. But guess what? Not all the teams agree. So some of the teams say, everyone gets asked individually by Riot, okay, what do you want to do? Some of the teams want it to be changed. Obviously, it's pretty easy to infer that based on who's complaining on Twitter and stuff. Some of the teams,
pretty sure there were only 2.
Yeah, some of the teams do not and actively are saying, no, we don't change it. You already said it's going to be 12.6. This is what we want. It's staying. And then the other teams basically don't care. Right? And that's pretty much what it is. And so it's not going to change. It's going to be on 12.6. But I did have some frustrations with the way that it was handled, where it's almost felt as though LCS was being thrown under the bus, when it's well, the reason this changed is because the teams wanted it. And the reason it's not changing back is because not all the teams want it to change back. So why is LCS being flamed here? Like, is like, are you trying to just basically like kind of like pressure people and use social pressure to like, you know, get your way? It's kind of how it came off from TL, which to me, you know, felt like a little bit of a bad look. It's one of those things where I just feel like this kind of stuff is better handled behind closed doors in a lot of ways, where it's like you can have discussion, you can talk it out, and you can kind of figure out what's best. Because I just never like when there's that sort of like, it feels almost like mudslinging. I don't know if that's the right term, but it feels that way where it's like,
that's where both sides lose because both sides are flaming each other, and so both candidates look worse.
Exactly, and that's kind of how it feels. Is that it's like it feels like it makes LCS look worse, and a lot of people's take are like, wow, LCS is so dumb and incompetent, and it's like, well,
you asked for this.
You asked for this.
Yeah, I think that is the key to me, and that was my reaction when people were like, "Oh, what do you think about this situation?" And you see like people on Twitter.
You want to start throwing names? Let's throw some names around.
People on Twitter were like, "Look at this! LEC took like all these months off so they could have it exactly the same and perfect consistency." I'm like, well, Riot went on vacation.
It was literally to do with GRC.
It had nothing to do with patch cadence for why LEC took time off. And who even wants? I would never want that much time off.
And I didn't mean to divert it there.
Sorry.
But the key was that league operations asked the LCS teams, and that was my initial response. I was like, oh, that's weird that they're complaining, because usually we ask the teams, the staffs of every team, and that's what determines if we jump to a patch or not. Because Riot does hold that as a value, not having big disruptive patches before big events, you know, international events or playoffs. These competitions, they want to try and keep things smaller. I do understand the difference between them being told that this is going to be a small patch and then not thinking,
if you think it's
not
a big
evaluating
patch,
this patch,
then you
as
feel like
being
you're giving the wrong information.
So that's where I see both sides, where I'm like, well, LCS did ask, okay, and I also understand the difference of thinking that this is a bigger patch, because it does hit some key champions here that affect pro play. Hecarim, one of the highest priority junglers, gets totally nerfed. Tryndamere gets medium nerfed with cooldown on the ultimate. Jax gets buffed in. I think Jax is going to be very prominent. And Azir gets a bit buffed in.
Sustain changes.
Sustain changes to me are smaller than those individual champion ones, but they are real, like 2% lifesteal on multiple items, taking out Ravenous Hunter. That is real, but to me, the individual champion ones would probably be the ones that the teams would look at as like, oh, this changes our meta and our pick ban. And so if you don't want more variation and you don't want to get upset, then you would want to stick with what you know, with what you have dominated on, and not have more changes. Generally, especially for me, just my super biased opinion, I like always changing to whatever the new patch is.
Does anyone actually think this is a big patch between the three of us? Let's be honest.
I think that it does have real changes to some
but that's
key
every
champions.
patch does that.
I don't think it's a super big patch, but it does have key changes to key champions, which
I don't think it's bigger than that than the average.
This is literally an average patch,
it's not,
or smaller.
It's not bigger than an average.
No, so that's my point. Is like, this is not like, I understand, you know, if this was like, oh, they did the fighter item rework here that they did in the middle of the split. If they did that here, I would be behind that. It's an average patch.
Yeah,
it's if Riot says this is we're gonna give you a small patch and this is what I got, this is exactly what I'd expect. You hit a couple key characters, a couple key champs that are dominating the meta. You make a couple item tweaks. They're not even like that big if we're talking numerically. It's not like they redefined a class on you.
Yeah,
you know, like it's totally overblown if someone thinks this is a big patch. That's just BS, and you're trying to like hype up why you're right. Like, no, they changed sustain as a whole, and it's like, tweaked a couple runes, tweaked a couple items.
Yeah, I mean, they did nerf sustain. I also, one thing, just kind of as an aside, I thought was really funny. They put the Rengar changes under adjustments, so it's not listed under buffs, but they are for sure buffs.
Rengar got a big change.
And I could see a team, like if you're playing against Pride Stalker, maybe, oh, that guy is named after this actual champion, then maybe you're kind of, a little unhappy because there might be something there. But
and so to go back to like the initial controversy of this too, like, I mean, it's Gil Hoto. I mean, he's down to scrap online, you know, like he's like, I wouldn't want to throw someone under the bus normally, but like he's kind of trolling with this, to be honest. Like, every single decision you make is going to have a risk reward. The immediate risk is in these 2 days having a slower time to vamp. But the reward is, if you're the MSI bound team, shouldn't you be stoked that you're actually practicing on some of the changes that you're going to have to play on? Because that was the complaint the last couple of years. We hate that we're the furthest major region behind going to the tournament. That was hammered home by teams time and time again. Riot asks, what do you guys want to do? You give this answer.
Yeah.
We do what you want, and then you want to change your mind later because you look at the patch and you're like, no. And then other teams don't agree. It's straight trolling. And then to try and throw like he didn't at Team Liquid, to be clear. His tweet was, can't wait to play playoffs in 5 days on a patch that is released in 2. To be fair, that can be read as flaming the other teams who aren't going along with this change.
Yeah.
But it doesn't read that way to fans.
Given, and all fan comments on it, and even other community members.
Other coaches are coming in as well. It starts a whole conversation that puts Riot at the center. And like, I'm not a Riot stan really, even though I work for them. Like, I on other shows criticize Riot when I disagree with their decision. This is a time where I'm like, you bringing this up in this way makes us look dumb. So now we have to tell you, no, you're the one being dumb. And now we all are just like, to Kobe's point, slinging mud. I hate it. I hate it so much.
I think it is like, the bullet point for this is like, Riot asks the teams what they want.
Yep.
If you want to change it or not. I think that is one key piece that all of the fans are missing, and what led to all of those comments piling on. If that bit of information was in, then you can get into these other smaller discussions. Oh, is the patch big? Is the patch small? Blah, blah, blah. But I think that is something that is not widely known.
Yeah. It's also just weird where it's like I feel like talking to most people feel that TL is the heavy favorite to win, right? And it's almost one of those things where it's like, Fudge had his interview. Oh yeah, Cloud9 went 0-15 in scrims going into last week. They've lost 3 of their last 5 games. Most people have TL as still like the favorites. Obviously 100 Thieves kind of worked their way up. C9, people still are giving considerations too. But it is surprising where it's like, if everyone thinks you're the best team already, and if you think you're the best team already, then being ready for MSI on a later patch is beneficial. The only reason you really want to stay on 12.5B is you're worried about variance, which means you're worried about getting upset early on, right? TL are playing against the 4th place team. They're playing against EG, like which almost then comes off like, are you really concerned about getting upset by EG in the first round? You have a second life
too. Like, go make the lower bracket run. I have zero compassion in this sense. Like, I play playoffs with no lower bracket. You know what? That sucked. I might have zero sympathy for you that you get upset in round 1 on something you chose to do weeks ago.
Here's also just another angle that's a slightly different philosophical question I'll pose to you guys, because I kind of like this angle a lot, and we've brought it up before. In testing who is the best team at League of Legends from your region to send as your representative to MSI, do you value the ability to adapt quickly to changes? Because if you stay on the previous patch, you are getting a better evaluation of the best team on that patch, and the best team that has had tons of time to practice, and we know all of the ins and outs, and the meta is figured out. And so maybe that's more evaluating who are the best coordinated, who are the best mechanics. But adaptability is like another third prong on things that are very real in League of Legends.
This is not the patch MSI will be on.
Yeah, because the game always changes, and going towards international events, they also try and keep patches very small. But adjustment is also something that I want my best team and my representative to have as a strength, when they're always talking about, oh my God, the world's meta internal scrims and everything changed everything.
Changes so fast. Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, it's if you want to test who is the best team, like, from the regular season, then less changes the better. And I fully do sympathize with that. It can be frustrating if it feels like it throws a wrench in your gears. It can be frustrating if you feel like you thought this was going to be small, it's bigger than you thought, and that feels misleading. That sucks. So I sympathize with TL from that point of view. But it's part of esports, it's part of the game that the patch does update, right? Like, actually staying on one patch forever would be the best, as far as like if you're just trying to test consistency and all these other things. But part of League of Legends absolutely is adaptability, and it's always hammered home internationally. I want a team who can adapt, right? And I do think that in the big picture, it's a relatively minor patch. And very well, like, it'll probably be 12.7, 12.8 or something for MSI. So it's probably going to be more changes between 12.5B and 12.6 than there is, there's going to be more changes between now and MSI than there was in this. So I do think it's important that our teams can start moving forward. And if you think the sustained changes are important, for example, then the more practice they have with that, the better for our team, whoever wins.
Play some Rengar, baby.
No. final thing I'll say, to be not just philosophical, but for Team Liquid as well, they're great. And they're a team full of players who can play different styles. Like if you ask me who's the team least affected by
so many
sort of
champions
change,
played.
yeah, they are probably the team who has the most versatility in the league of the top teams. They're an incredible team. I am not worried at all on this angle for them. This is not a team with a hyper-specific play style that just got nerfed heading into playoffs that they're mad about, you know, like. So I think Team Liquid is still the favorites. I mean, we'll get into this a little bit later, but like, I still have 100% faith in them as much as I'm just like yelling at their coach. Like, I actually think that they're still gonna crush.
Yep. So what are the big things then to actually dig into the patch? Like for you, what do you guys think are some of the kind of key things here? If you want to touch
so I listed all of mine off. Hecarim is dead. They took a bunch of damage off of both Q and E on level
base
up.
damages.
So
right?
level 1, their base damages.
Yep.
So level 1 is exactly the same champion. And you max Q first and then E second. So you do max out both his abilities very quickly. And so they took a lot of base damage off of him. So I think that's going to be a significant hit to Hecarim, who was becoming basically #1 priority jungler for a lot of teams. Tryndamere as well. I think is a very intelligent and good change, because it was so dumb to me that Tryndamere players only leave 1 point in their ultimate. Yeah. And that's the standard way to play, because you don't get a lot of value out of leveling it up. So they put more value in it by nerfing the cooldown early. And they also nerfed the mobility, the annoying mobility of getting cooldown reduction back on your E a bit. So they are definitely nerfs. I think he's still alive. Hecarim, I think, is more dead after those nerfs. The Jax coming back in, I do think is definitely going to get played. It was already right on the edge, and you'd see Jax like pop out a couple counter picks, but he got base health and damage on W. So I think Jax is coming into pro play. And the Rengar one, I think this is troll to have it listed as adjustments. That should be listed under buffs. So I think maybe if we have junglers or even a laner, Whippo, who has
I mean, to be fair, they're changing some of like how the stuff works. That's why it's under adjustments, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they're trying to hide it, right?
They can be adjustments. Yeah. They're adjustments in the direction of a higher win rate. That's, that's
but just the idea of like, I think they're trying to be clear that it's like, hey, it's not just numbers changes. There's now no cast time on the E when like when you're leaping, you now get like reveal on your true sight on your R. So like
I take adjustments as, oh, we're moving some things around. You know, I'm buffing here, but I'm nerfing here.
Fair. I think the intent is it works in a different way now, right? And so I actually like that they differentiate in the patch, because otherwise I think people just kind of scroll past sometimes and there's like, oh, it's like a bunch of numbers, right? Okay. So like I do think there's like some stuff that is worth knowing. The true sight, I think, can be situationally important, right? Like that the thing that I saw when I saw the true sight on R was kind of interesting. It was like, you know, you can apparently like get true sight on like a Kali Shroud and stuff now as well. So you can actually theoretically see her even in her W, which I believe is like a new thing. Like,
well, it already granted true sight. The change is that now it also gives normal vision around.
So you could already see her in her shroud, because that was something that's I was talking to a Rengar player and they were saying that was new to me. But maybe I'm
Akali is always a super troll topic as an example, because it was true invisibility or whatever the shit it was called. Yeah. True stealth bullshit. Yeah. So I don't know about the answers for that one, but. Okay. He definitely revealed, okay?
Yeah.
Because
he revealed Twitch and that
a big
sort of
part of like Kazakh's Rengar matchup is that Rengar can ult your ass and you're glowing red. Akali is bullshit. Anyways,
Kobe turned into a potty mouth. You bring up Akali, he's
Akali, like, more cursing than he's had over the last year.
Normal vision, 100 units around the person. So it is a buff. Like that's an adjustment in a positive way, I'll say.
Biggest change, Q on turrets. Love it. No
or
more
top lane Rengar. That's why I was like,
that's what
It's actually that is really, really a big deal. It's one of those things like Trundle and Fiora and some of these champions that were given that made it so much faster for your turret killing. So I do think it can be pretty powerful, especially if you combine with Demolish. Like a lot of people do, like Resolve Secondary can be pretty strong. Tank split push Rengar, bring it back. Remember
how awful that was watching a 6-item Kog'Maw not be able to deal damage to a tank Rengar?
I'll never forget IPL in Las Vegas. Was that 4 or 5?
I don't remember.
It was Chow Mei's tank Rengar.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Literally running around through their whole base, killing everyone.
6 full tank items versus 6 damage items Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw could not kill him.
That is crazy that sticks in our minds so solidly. You know how old that is? Holy shit.
Years, yeah. It's like 20. I think that's
this game is potty mouse. You cursed earlier. I think it's your fault. You like
I
broke.
did one. I did.
You broke the bridge. There's gonna be bleeps.
I opened the gate.
Yeah, exactly. There's gonna. Well, I don't know what the bridge was. Yeah, never mind.
We're
Maybe
gonna
it was
have a counter on screen of potty mouth moments. We're up to like 10 right now.
Yeah, we are.
I'm sure my producer loves us just promising things.
And editing.
Well, see, the best part is they can just ignore us, right? Because that's part of the charm.
Yeah.
One thing that was interesting, I was watching.
I wanted to add one more on Rengar because you shouted out the ultimate and you shouted out Q hitting turrets. To me, the biggest one, and especially this is more jungler bias, yours is more top laner bias, the passive free ferocity you can get on any ferocity that you have, because previously you could only get it if you're at 0. And so, okay, there are some things where like you're starting your clear and you're like jumping on the blast cone back. And so you start with 1, but it actually will help to clear a very decent amount on things like Krugs, where you'll do red, ward over the Krug wall, jump out of the red brush over to the Krugs, and you're getting ferocity as you're cutting back to the brush. Now you don't have to think about, oh, do I have to get down to 0 but to be able to, get my free ferocity? Yeah. You're always going to get your free ferocity, even if you already have some ferocity stacked up. Plus, they're increasing the amount of time before ferocity falls off. So you can do things like stacking up ferocity early, then using your ult and going in with more power than you would have. 2 extra seconds is actually pretty meaningful in keeping around ferocity and holding on ferocity for stuff like, even if you had max ferocity, sometimes Rengars will need to hold it for a W to be able to cleanse out of some CC or something and use it in kiting scenario. So I just think it's all around buffs for Rengar, makes him more versatile, more usable. Go pick up the cat now. Cat for Kobe.
In jungle.
Rengar. If he can't get one at home, at least get one on the Rift for him.
Exactly.
This message goes out to Travis Gafford.
So I watched Freak's patch rundown, and one of the things that he was talking about that I thought was kind of an interesting point was just that like quietly there's been like kind of like he called it, a health creep essentially in League of Legends, where it's just like there's more and more ever since they did runes reforged, everyone got like way more base health because that was supposed to make up for the runes. Then mages, for example, there's a lot more health in a lot of their itemization now, and like more of that, just how it's like the health pools are getting higher and higher, and some of the effect that can quietly be having on the game over time. And it was interesting hearing that. And then I'm looking through the patch, and Shield Bow is getting, the additional, basically like for the compensation buff for the sustained nerf is that the shield actually gets bigger later on. And then also per item that you complete additionally, you get 20 more health. And then Legend Bloodline also is going to give flat health at the completion of the rune. So it's actually, instead of scaling up to 9%, it's only up to 6% lifesteal. But then at maximum stacks, you get also a flat 100 health. So like, 2/3 of a ruby crystal. None of these things are enormous, but it's just interesting that like, it's kind of like stacking up and stacking up. And it just kind of makes me curious, like if that will end up being a bit more valuable perhaps than sustain in some cases anyway. Like I do feel like it's better against assassins, it's worse against poke clearly, but like champions that have to 100 0 you as a marksman, theoretically if you're a shield bow marksman, if you get to 6 items, you have 4 the tier 2 boots don't count, right? So you get an additional 80 health plus an additional 100 from Legend Bloodlines. You have like almost 200 more health than you would have the previous patch.
I just realized what the Rengar player you were talking to was referring to with Akali. Sorry, I got sidetracked because I raged at the champion.
No problem.
But it's not the ultimate. The thing that he's probably referring to is that you get True Sight on landing your Bola on them, Empower Bola now, for 2 seconds. Because you could jump on Akali before with the ultimate. But that's it. Then your True Sight is gone.
That's exactly what you're talking
about.
about.
So now it's 2 seconds. Plus the normal vision around.
Theoretically important, but maybe we'll never even see that matchup, right? Akali's not played that much. Rengar's not played at all. But it will be interesting to see if it comes back in. I like when there's some situational answers where you can bring out something a little bit different because someone has X champ. You're like, ooh, well, I'm going to do this, right? So I think stuff like that can be cool. And I'm excited to see some Rengar back because I literally never see Rengar ever in solo queue, and it's definitely non-pro.
Nope. Goodbye, Trinamir as well. No, it's not dead, but for a lot of teams that were crutching on it, someday, it's a problem. Anyways, on to the actual LCS. We got a lot to get through still for the LCS. Power rankings, check-in, regular season done. This is what our rankings were supposed to predict. How do we do? Drum roll.
I won
as a whole. Okay, so Azael wins. So the way that we score these is based on how far off the team's placing was.
Each team,
Each team. So if you predict a team to be first and they're second, you are 1 spot off.
Yeah.
And you kind of add up how many spots off you were total. So Azael wins. He was only 14 off.
So we didn't do that bad. There was 3 major teams that we basically got all our placements wrong on. But you can finish.
So I'll finish. I got 16. Kobe got 18. Big loser, big winner. Irrelevant. I would say this is one of the worst we've done. Not necessarily numerically, but it felt like
we got a couple key ones very wrong.
Right, and it's like not very. Sometimes we would get things where like, oh, I thought this team would be 10th and they were 7th, which is like technically 3 wrong, but like we're kind of. It's like you're not weren't in playoffs anyways. There were a lot of teams I think that we got straight up wrong about being in playoffs or not.
So TSM, we were very wrong. We had them 5th, 6th. Basically, between each of us. So they obviously were significantly worse. Golden Guardians was the one I was the most wrong on, like as far as points wise. So Golden Guardians, I was 4 off. I thought they were going to be worse than they were. You guys were closer on that one. And then FlyQuest. Those were the ones that we hit like the big wrong on, basically. Like I was 4 off on TSM. I was 4 off on Golden Guardians. The reason that I did better than you guys was because I had FlyQuest 7th. You guys had them 10th. So I was only 1 off on that and you guys were 4. But like, it was really those 3 teams. Everything else is like very close and pretty much like right on the money as far as our power rankings were. But those 3 basically accumulated like all of our missed points or our missed placements.
Yeah. So like from a missed points perspective, I don't necessarily think it's the worst, but the fact that FlyQuest and Golden Guardians are both in playoffs and none of us predicted them to be. The fact that Dig and TSM are not in playoffs and we all predicted them to be. The fact that we said C9 would be 4th, which to be fair, we didn't know anything about them, but we also predicted EG to be better than 100 Thieves. Clearly EG is not even in that 3-team conversation. So like putting them second is not very, it's not like, oh, it's just 1 point off. It's also
I don't think anyone put them second.
We all
evil geniuses?
Yep, after lock-in.
Everyone thought they were
Oh my God. Idiots.
Yeah, so like we're 2 points wrong on EG, like only 2 positions off, but like they are not the same class of team, it feels like, than the teams that we got. So that's why to me, I've known that like sometimes we do these and I'm like, we did pretty good.
Yeah.
And I feel like we kind of suck.
Yeah, this is definitely one of our worst years.
It is for sure. I don't think it's as bad as you're making it out to be, but I do agree.
I want to go back and look at the old one.
We had some bigger misses for sure.
Sometimes I'm proud. I'm not proud.
Yeah.
This isn't like an outstanding one for sure. Like I said, the only reason I did better than you guys is because the FlyQuest one. I mean, maybe, it would be interesting to even see, because this is something I was thinking about. Like when I calculate, I'm like, how many times have we won this, right? Like, because we usually go back and we check, and we've been doing this since the very beginning of the dive. It would be interesting to see who has done the best in the predictions overall as well, and who has done the worst over the 6 years we've done this now, or something, or 5 years. I don't know. It's been a long time.
I definitely remember winning at least one time.
Yeah.
The wins stick in your mind. The losses, I don't remember.
I've won a couple
times, summer Kobe will be like, I'm the best predictor.
But yeah, I mean, we were definitely off with some of them. EG, like to talk about EG, clearly looked way better in lock-in and has just been at a lower level. C9, like I had them 3rd, so I feel like they're like in the kind of the area that I thought, but like it's a lot of the teams did not get to where I thought they were in the way that I thought they would. TL, I had number 1. I was like, TL I thought was going to be cruising and like relatively dominant throughout the whole thing. They got first place, last day, mostly because of a C9 fall off, right? So it's like there's a lot of these things that it's like some of the power rankings ended up being we were pretty right, but definitely not in the way that I predicted, which is, I think, what leads me to agree with you, where it's like, we did actually do that well.
Yeah. And like, I think we are also indexing a little bit too much in lock-in. I think lock-in kind of trolled us hard.
Yeah. Next year, I'm looking at lock-in.
It was both the EG one, but then there were so many teams that also, some of the wins against like academy teams might have been too strong in people's memories, but also, there were so many teams like Cloud9. I felt like we were all hesitant on putting them, for sure 1-2, because we didn't see Berserker or Summit. And obviously they have become very big pieces, the most prominent parts of some of this domination. So not having that data, I think, is another reason why we were hesitant.
100 Thieves slumping was another big reason too. We're like, oh, maybe they're gonna just not be that great. And it's like, yeah, they were a little slow, but by the end, they ripped off a 7-game win streak to end the split. Like, they're still a very good team.
Yep.
Well, me and you both put them third still.
Yep.
Yeah.
And C9, yeah, like that. I had C9 one higher than you guys, and you guys had that. Like, I had C9 third. You guys had 100 Thieves third. C9 also, one of the differences for me was that Fudge was good right out the gate. You know, and I think that was a big difference because this was our regular season prediction. This was not our playoffs prediction, right? So I was thinking, okay, at the start of the season, I expected C9 to lose more games because I thought there would be a bigger gap between Fudge and the field. And mid lane in general, I think was weak in this split. I think it's one of the weaker years for LCS, but I also have to give Fudge his due. And Fudge, I think, was a top 3 mid laner in the league. You know, all said and done, I think he deserves to be up there, or at the very least in consideration. I'm expecting him to be all-pro, you know, on one of the teams. So I think that was a big difference as well, that like he was good right out the gate when I thought that, hey, like, we don't know how this Berserker bot lane is going to do. I was confident Summit was going to be the best top laner. Like, I had full faith
you're
in him.
Summit's #1 fan even before he showed up.
Yeah, like I had full confidence that Summit was going to do that. But I didn't know how the bot lane would be out the gate, and I didn't know how mid lane was going to be out the gate. And I thought they were going to lose more games as a result.
I think main takeaway, shout outs to Golden Guardians and FlyQuest for making it into playoffs and being underrated. Let's get right into our Anchor.fm question. Play that for you now.
Hey guys, Justin here. And my question to you is, with Summit having some poor performances within these last 2 weeks of spring, is the recency bias enough of a pull to take the MVP from his grasp and fall into someone else's, such as Blabber, Closer, Sunday, or a member from Team Liquid? I would love to hear the reasons why Summit is still deserving or has been surpassed by another player and the reasons why.
It certainly makes the discussion way more interesting than it was previously. Because previously it was like, shoo-in, it's got to be Summit.
Guaranteed.
He's dominated harder than anybody has. So it makes it more interesting. For me, it wasn't enough to bump him off of my first place pedestal, but it did make it really close. And especially Someday was rising up because he was the first one to deliver the Malphite blow.
Yeah. So I would have been open to, like, after the TSM game and this weekend, I would have been open, but this weekend was funny where, like, every time we tried to build somebody up, they into the next game immediately. So, like, someday, like, well, maybe he can be the MVP, and they're like, give him Lucian. This is great for his MVP resume. Terrible Lucian game, you know? We're like, Takoi, could he be first team All-Pro? Dies to, like, the most obvious roams mid, like literally people clearing wards and then continuing mid, and he dies back-to-back games doing that. And we're like,
yeah, I remember talking specifically right about how he's so good at avoiding ganks and stuff, and then that game happens, and I'm like,
then we interviewed high-did pros with both supports afterwards, and both supports are like, yeah, I didn't think this play should have worked, but he just didn't back off, so we killed him. Yeah. It was Vulcan and Destiny both said the same thing afterwards, and I was like, I can't, like, you know, like, it just kept happening. And so, like, I feel for Summit, it kind of left the door open, but no one, like, else burst through and was like, me, I'm your new MVP.
Tom, who Optimus Tom, he was one of our stats team guys for a lot of years and did a lot of the tabulations for these awards. And he was saying on Twitter that traditionally, over the years, he has seen a lot of recency bias play into the awards, right? And so I do think it is an interesting question. For me, it's not going to change it. Like, I haven't actually submitted my awards votes. It's due tonight by midnight, so I'm going to be doing it today. But I don't think it should, personally. I think Summit, you have to try your very best to look back and think about all the games, and that's something that I have to do too, because everyone is affected by recency bias, right? My opinions of the players shifts week to week to week to week. So what I have to do is think about how I think the players are now, and then go back and actually, like, review, how many bad games did you actually have? How many good games did you actually have, right? Like, am I being fair about this? Oh, you only had 3 good weeks at the end, but you were trash for 6 weeks? Well, you shouldn't be up there, right? Summit, I think, had some bad games, but overall, like, he has just been such a force in the LCS and has been so consistently lane dominant. Teams have to change their game plan completely when he is in the game. They have got to throw more bans towards top lane. They have got to path up towards top lane more, and he still does well and carries many games. Like, I just think he is the MVP, and I don't think that should change off of 1 or 2 bad games personally, because of the numerous amounts of dominant performances he's had.
I agree. I actually did a blame game about this, and I've looked into it now, and like if I did the math right, if I used the sheets correctly, his CSD at 15 was tied for the highest all-time historically ever for laners. He's just insanely lane dominant to that point, like huge CSD leads, 4%. He led the league in solo kills. He also led the league in isolated deaths, but if you went and looked at his stats last year, he also led LCK top laners in deaths last year. Like, he's just a feast or famine type player.
He goes for stuff he shouldn't sometimes.
Yeah, like,
but it also allows him to do amazing things.
That's exactly my point, is like, he could have stopped dying on Graves at some point if he wanted to. Like, he could have just like tucked his tail between his legs, gave Malphite priority, and like, all right, I'm just going to farm now under my turret. But he didn't do that, and like, in some sense, it's like, it looks worse to go 0-8 and set the record for most deaths in a game for top lane this year. Like, that doesn't look good. But at the same time, he's actually still trying to win the game more than people who go, oh, I can't do anything now.
So I think it depends on this. This is like, I agree with you, like, where it's like, that's how you come back individually. It's not always how you come back in the game, and it depends on the context.
Right. The rest of your team's doing well.
Exactly.
Stop bleeding.
If your team is popping off bot side, you die once top side in a matchup you're supposed to win, it actually is time to AFK under your tower and minimize loss.
Yeah.
If your team is losing elsewhere, or the whole draft is dependent upon you winning, then you don't actually create an opportunity to win the game by getting scared. You have to keep going at them and hope that you can make something happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing, like we said, the other candidates, like, I don't even know who you guys else are entertaining.
I think the people
I already voted.
It's like Someday, Closer,
This comes out after.
Blabber, Summit. This will come out after. Yep.
After voting's locked.
After voting's locked.
Right.
But
So you won't influence anyone's mind. I don't know if the concern is that we're going to know how you voted if you answer this at all.
Yeah, I mean, they had a thing in there where you're not supposed to reveal before
we've always talked about like who we believe.
I mean, some people have literally tweeted their whole thing already. So.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So for me, the other problem is that like a lot of the junglers who I think are critical to their team's success, like Santorin and Closer, who I would like seriously entertain as other MVP candidates, are at least statistically outperformed by Blabber by almost every metric. Like, Blabber, yet again, leads junglers in almost every category around. And I actually do think Blabber had an incredible split.
He did.
And so, like, I can make a case that Closer was the most important person in 100 Thieves getting third, or Santorin was the most consistent member in Team Liquid getting first, excuse me. But
yeah,
I have a hard time saying that they're better than their own competition by a significant margin, whereas it's Summit and no one else in his position, which is like, for me, where the term value I used instead of just like straight skill or like something like that.
Yeah. It's almost weird because I know there's been more and more of a push for Someday, and there was like, you guys showed the 100 Thieves podcast, they did their fan vote or whatever, the poll, and it was like 80% of the 100 Thieves fans who listened to that podcast voted that, oh, who would you put up for MVP? It was Someday over Closer, which I found very surprising because it's just like kind of how.
Am I the only one that didn't find it surprising? Because Jai also said that like you guys were all surprised.
I think Closer has had such a good year. I just thought it was going to be more even. It's interesting to me that 100 Thieves fans that heavily identify that basically no, it's Someday is the reason we're winning games, not Closer, because Closer has had a lot of amazing games.
He has, but Someday has also literally won them entire games, and I just think he's won them more games. I also was taking into account that I know I cast every single one of their Someday split push win games, and I didn't cast either of their 2 loss games with him split push. Because I did not cast his Jace game. I also did not cast the Trinity game that they lost. But I casted every single one of the ones that they win. So I was like, I think that this is making me stronger there.
So you're like, wow, Someday sucks.
Because we cast basically all the games. Yeah. So if you cast all the wins, I guess I cast all the L's.
Yeah. So I was like, I understand this is making me feel stronger this way, and I'm still going with it.
That's funny. I guess like when people bring up Someday, and maybe this is unfair, but I basically am just like, no, you actually have no shot to win MVP because Summit was just better than you in your own role. And I always think if you are not clearly the best in your role, you actually have no shot to win MVP. Is how I always kind of think about it.
Still fine to vote because you have 3.
Totally deserving of a vote, and I will. It's either going to be him or Closer in there from 100 Thieves. Yeah. I don't think I would have both, but it's just like, I can't imagine a world in which he wins, because when I talk to people in the LCS, there is no one who doesn't say that Someday is the best top laner in the league. And if people don't think you're the best in your role and didn't perform the best, you just can't be the MVP.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I wasn't I wasn't shocked that people think some days having a good year. It's arguably his best
by the
year.
percentages though.
The percentages is what surprised me, and I think he's been incredible. I don't want to make it sound like he hasn't been, but I feel like they're the 1-2 punch, kind of like how C9 was as well, where it's like, all right, your top side is what's winning you games.
Yeah. That's well, I mean, spoilers, because I kept with the Someday. I voted for Summit first, and voting for Summit first for MVP unlocks your possibility of putting Someday on your ballot, because I agree, Summit is the better top laner. So if you're voting for him, I think you do have to like unlock it yourself to be able to do it, because it's going to be very hard to argue the other way. I would have said there would be a better chance if right after 100 Thieves had beat Cloud9, they didn't get dunked on by Dignitas and having him be on the Lucian and split pushing. Like, that was like my whole thing came crumbling down. So I already had the ballot in my mind and everything. And I was like,
yeah, I'm with you.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to transition. My follow-up was going to be, we talked about mid lane for Fudge. He did better than we thought. Mid lane has felt difficult, and I don't know how you guys are feeling, but I think I'm ending up putting Bjerg.
Mid lane and support were the two hardest for me. Mid lane and support were really hard.
And arguably third position for bot, I think, could be difficult as well. I've heard different approaches to that. I mean, I think, pretty much everyone has Hans and
FBI Danny basically is your
FBI Danny, and I know I've heard some arguments for Neo. I've heard some arguments for Luger. And then I think for support, it's like everyone's probably just going to end up putting Core because
Core JJ.
He's one of the best players in the entire league and always is. But then beyond Core, I actually think it's arguable to have like almost like a lot of different permutations.
Biofrost, Aphromoot, Vulcan, Ole, I think all.
Even Huhi during the stretch was way better.
See, Huhi for me, because of the early season kind of trolling, where they admitted
he's
to
not
it.
Be in for me, but yeah. I think people will make arguments.
And I just listed 4 for like 2 remaining spots.
Yep. And I do think that I think Huhi will get votes. So I think you can at least say, even though I don't think he'll be in mine, I think there's potentially 5 for 2 spots.
So I agree that AD carry and support are hard, but they're hard because I feel like a lot of people played really well. I feel like for mid, it's just like no one super stood out.
Yeah, no one shined.
Like JoJo has the most insane laning stats out of any of them, but then,
team fighting is
not great. He's on a 500 team. He's
you got to
struggling.
do something with your lead.
Yeah, he's not like blowing games open. Like, oh, LeBlanc in the side lane from that lead that he got just took over the game. And to be fair, the meta wasn't good for that. But that's also the problem is like no one's standing out. I think I'm going Bjerg as my first just because he's been so consistent the whole time. Even earlier on when we're like, he's letting his teammates carry. He's like playing Zillion. He's like not making mistakes. And then in the later weeks, he started carrying a little bit harder on the LeBlanc, or excuse me, I think he had a LeBlanc game too, but specifically the Ahri and stuff. So I think I'm ending up putting Bjerg first. And then after that, I'm like, I don't know who deserves it. Like, is it JoJo?
I feel like it's probably Fudge Decoy, personally.
Fudge Decoy, yeah.
But like what order? And also, yeah, I don't feel super strong about it either. It's weird. It is really weird. This is, I do think, the weakest mid lane has been since I've been in LCS, at least. I mean,
that is one prediction we got correct at the beginning of the split.
Yeah.
We lost some really good mid laners, right? Like we lost Jizuke, was second in MVP voting, first team All Pro in summer, out of the league. Jensen was on All Pro for sure, I assume. I can't actually
He might
remember.
have missed it, actually.
Did he? Okay.
But I think that speaks more to like.
Okay, so maybe he had a bad split.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, he had a great Worlds, I think, individually. Obviously, he's one of the best mid laners in the league for many years. He was gone. PoE had a down year. So I think those things.
Yeah, we lost PoE to.
Yeah, Abadaga had a very down year. Like I think one of the craziest things is that Abadaga went from this like constantly being in discussion for best mid laner in the league to like when I have these conversations with people about, oh yeah, All Pro for mid is really tough. No one even mentions his name.
Too much Gucci.
He's drunk on the Gucci.
He was bringing it back at the end, but just too little, too late, I think, to just ignore what was going on in the first half of the season for him.
Yeah. All Pro is going to be really interesting. We'll obviously touch on that next week, but we got to dive into the playoffs here. We're over an hour in. And first playoff matchup, C9 versus 100 Thieves. We touched a little bit on the teams. I think 2 weeks ago, like if we're before week 7 or even after week 7, if people told you this was the matchup, you're like C9 3-0. Now, after C9 drop a game in week 7, after they drop some games in week 8, three losses out of the last 5 games, you hear about the 0-15 scrim block. 100 Thieves continue this run where they get some big wins, seven game winning streak. Of course, they lost their last game of the split, whatever. But they were on a 7-game winning streak. I think people start to really think a lot harder about this. And I'm super curious to see if you guys are starting to like actually feel the needle move, or even with the losses, even with news.
I think this is the most exciting matchup. I think this is insanely hype.
Yep.
Because it's literally coming right off the back. They just trounced Cloud9.
Yep, they clapped them.
Yes, they did turn around and drop really hard to dig, but that's one of those games where, because you're making you made this all in very different, Lucian top style, and you made some very clear errors really early on that made the game unwinnable pretty early. I'm like, I don't care. I'm still hyped for this. I'm kind of brushing it off as like, okay, yes, erase that. They're still coming off of immediately beating Cloud9, showing that they can deal with Summit. And this is something, I know you've been watching a lot of Champions Queue also. You watch Summit on Champions Queue, he has these like, holy shit, it's Summit, unwinnable. Like, what can we do? They dominated. It's a 20-minute surrender or whatever. He also has
the 0-10.
He also has the 1-in-12 Summit games. He does what he did in that game in Champions Queue all the time. Like, this is him for real all the time. And it does happen. So I thought it was
sprinting it in some games.
Yeah.
And I'm
that's
just
why
like,
I was
no
like,
one says anything because you're Summit and you're the best player in your role, but you lost your team the game solo.
But that's why I kept on being like, oh my God, why are not more junglers just turbo camping top lane? You can gank from so many angles because he never is going to drop wards in the side brush. You can go through lane, wait in the side brush. He's going to go for an aggressive trade. Believe me, at some point. Then you get your gank, or even a counter gank if enemy jungler is coming, if Blabber's on the way. The problem is, it doesn't happen early, and then he gets to a point where he has a big advantage and he can 1v2
at 10%
some of these situations, or they call Blabber and your laner's already behind, and it's like, well, I'm fighting a 2v2 and you have Summit who's been bullying all game long and I have a half HP, whatever.
Yep. You can't be everywhere as the jungler, and that's the reality of it. And that's why if you are consistently amazing in lane, it's like, yeah, you have to play aggressive to do that, but the jungler cannot be in all spots at all times, right? And Blabber, if you know your top laner is going to go aggressive and that's part of your game plan, then you ward for this guy and you protect this guy in that way, right? You don't always have to be there ganking. But even if you're warding bot side jungle, that's actually protecting your top laner because the jungler is not there. Guess what? You got to play safe, or he's there. Well, now I can go ham.
Message to all solo queue top laners. You being pushed in and at 50% health is not an opportunity. That's not an advantage for the jungler to come gank your laner who has been pushed up all game long, if the enemy jungle is unknown and probably up there waiting for the 2v2 win.
Caveat, I will say it feels really bad if I play some pick for the team with gank assist and my jungler never comes. Because if you hit a blind top, there's a lot of matchups where it's
all right, we're not talking about your solo queue. 70 minutes, we don't have time. 100 Thieves. All right, you guys are gassing up C9. Let's talk about how they're actually.
Are we gassing up C9?
You guys just talked about Summon and Blabber for like 7 minutes straight. Let me tell you about
fake news.
This little thing called Winsome and Berserker sucking as well. We talk about Summit having a bad game. Berserker inted on Ezreal, like just straight up multiple times. Their bot lane has always been like a little like in lane phase, like sometimes you just kind of don't worry about it, and then sometimes they lose really badly. If FBI and Huhi are coming back, I think 100 Thieves show they don't actually need to play around someday. They can maybe try and skill check him and bring the jungler up and camp him, which they kind of did with that. But I also feel like they're more willing to be able to play through other lanes. Like
for C9, sure they
C9
are.
only plays one way, and that's through top. And if you can either make it about somewhere else or counter that, there's not really much else they do. We haven't seen Fudge ever carry, and Abadaga is looking better, and the meta is shifting a little bit more towards...
Fudge has some carry games. I don't think that's fair to say.
Hold on there
You can say he is not like who they are playing through or something. Like, I think that's maybe more what you mean, that it's like they don't go into the draft and 5th pick mid lane and then, top's roaming down and jungle's there. And
they do like gank setup, but it's not like...
He had some really good carry games. Like there was a Victor game like that I have in my mind where he was...
Against TL, he had a good Victor game.
Like, he's had some carry games, so I won't agree with that. And I do think Berserker has carried games as well. So I also won't agree with that.
I don't need to be accurate.
That's fine, but But I think that their early game play style is largely play through top, and that's a fair criticism.
Yeah, and so if you get matchups that are LeBlanc versus Ari, which we've started seeing, and if you're watching Europe and LEC right now, like some of these games are mid gaps, and they're taking over the game again. I can see a world where there's some skill matchups thrown down mid, and it's about who can win that. And then, maybe Summit is just being neutralized by Someday, and then you get into these 1-3-1 setups, and you have these other potential win cons available for 100 Thieves that are tough for Cloud9 to match.
See, do you advantage Abbedagge even in that mid, even given that though? Because
not really.
He has definitely had a soft year.
It's a bit of a copium take that and he's back in form to summer now.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why this matchup to me is so hype, because literally both teams, they've got MVP candidates in top jungle. All four of those players could literally be your MVP ballot. It's literally just the top side of the match of this matchup.
That's actually
that could
so
be
true,
it could be your whole MVP ballot, and nobody would blink an eye.
And people are going to 100%, no matter who wins MVP. People look at it. See, I told you, or you were wrong. Because the playoffs,
if whoever the MVP
season award
doesn't win playoffs, you're getting blamed for your ballot.
And it's first round playoffs too. So it's instant because you get it announced.
It's going to be really exciting. I mean, I do feel like it's a lot closer. I think I'm being somewhat swayed just because C9 had so many dominant weeks that I still feel like they are favored. And I am not sure if I'm just kind of like stuck in the past and they're actually like not as good now or whatever. Because it is concerning when you hear that they're getting clapped that hard in scrims and then also losing on stage. I know Fudge in his interview really did kind of have it spun as a positive where, and some of the things he said are very true. Like, hey, like they learn a lot more when they are losing because you don't really recognize your mistakes until you actually are punished and lose the games from them. But like, I think the teams he listed off was like TSM, EG, and their academy team. And they went 0-15 against that, which isn't even like, it's not like, oh, we had a bad one against TL or whatever. Oopsie, right? It's an academy squad. It's a 9th place team. So that plus poor stage performances do concern me for sure. But I still feel like I'm more on the Cloud9 side just because I feel like Summit is such a difference. I'm expecting in a BO5 him to make that difference. If 100 Thieves can really neutralize him, like if that is a true statement that somebody has a pick for every game to actually just like neutralize and top lane is not where they're creating an advantage, then I think 100 Thieves will likely win. Because I do actually, on average, think that their bot lane should be getting more of an edge. And that's where it gets really interesting because that's a different beast, a BO1 versus BO5, right? Like you're going to have your drafts planned out around what they think the win cons are. And if they think it's Summit, maybe they're heavily banning top and looking for neutralizing picks like tanks. And that'll be really interesting to see if C9 has an answer to that.
I mean, this is one of the matchups that actually does get affected by the patch because Tryndamere nerfs hit Someday way harder than they hit Summit. Summit is a good Tryndamere. He had his 1v4 Tryndamere play in Champions Queue. But I think it definitely hurts 100 Thieves and Someday more because even though I still have faith that Someday, he showed multiple split push picks. The Graves was also very successful. He had multiple super strong wins on Graves split pushing. The Tryndamere was obviously the main one. But then seeing the Lucian flop on stage makes you think, oh, okay, it might get a little dicey there. If players start early picking tanks and want to like blind pick early or something and say, okay, it's just going to be weak side. Alawi also got buffed on this patch. I really want to see some counter pick Alawis.
Not happening.
I know it's not going to happen, but it would be so sweet. I feel like you would get so much credit if you there's a draft and you see a blind pick tank topside, Alawi will blast that. And they have lots of melees. It's just like, oh my God, I want to see a team win with one of those so strong of counter picks, even if the player hasn't played too much of that champion.
Dude, I want to see Nasus in it if people are doing blind tanks. I actually think Nasus is sleeper OP now.
You guys are, these are not happening.
Gonna get it.
You know what you're going to get?
Anyways, back to reality.
On the patch, what you're actually going to get is more Jax. You're going to get a little more Jax because he got buffed, maybe. Some of these matches.
Back to reality, though. I actually wanted to press you on which bottom lane did you were saying something about bottom lane getting an advantage.
I expect 100 Thieves bot lane to be better on average in this series.
In lane phase.
And so that's why I'm saying if Summit's not able to get an edge in lane, I think that 100 Thieves can come out of the early game ahead, right? Which is why it's like it kind of hinges a lot on top lane. But I just don't believe that 100 Thieves will be able to have a consistent answer for Summit because I think he is too good.
The other wrinkle in this is that the struggles that 100 Thieves had a lot was more late game decision making and stuff and
rough.
macro. And C9's team fighting is just so good. Like, they don't always end up in like these straight team fight situations, but that's what Berserker carried a lot of those mid-season games. And same with Fudge on that Victor play. To be fair, you know, he can play control mages. So I think that would maybe be the one extra wrinkle, is that late game. I'm not 100% sold on 100 Thieves still. And
C9 plays the map better, because that is the biggest criticism I think of 100 Thieves. You know, when you're not just talking about laning and individuals, is that like they mostly only win through 5v5ing, right? And I think that is kind of the concern that people have had about them, and a lot of people, detractors from them, even when they won the championship last year. People are kind of quick to say, but like all you can do is 5v5. You don't play the sides as well. Like you know, your setups aren't as good. Which I think there is some validity to that, but also they went to Worlds and went 1-1 against like multiple teams that were, you know, like top 4 or finalists or whatever it was. Like, so they are really good at what they do. But I do think if you're not ahead from the early game, C9 team fights really well, and C9 plays the map better. So, all
right, predictions.
I'm still going Cloud9, but Super Week made it so much more exciting for me. I really think 100 Thieves have a very good chance, and I would not be surprised if I'm wrong.
I feel like we're all gonna go C9, but I the more I think about it, I'm like, am I just trolling? Like, is this?
You're not trolling. But you could be wrong. Yeah. There's a very real chance that you're wrong.
This is one of those 55-45s, and we all agree on the 55, but it's like, it's not actually.
Okay, let's go to Team Liquid then.
What's the series score then? Are you saying it's going to be 3-2? So you think it's that close?
Yeah.
I think it'll probably be more like 3-1. Like, if they can't handle Summit, then it just goes one way, but I just don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 C9. So we're all C9?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're
Team
wrong.
Liquid versus Evil Geniuses, baby.
We're wrong. All right. So 100 Thieves winning confirmed. We all predicted C9. TLEG.
3-0 TL.
Yeah, this one feels way more one-sided. I just don't think EG is a good team. And like, as far as like at championship level, I should give that qualifier. They did have a good final day, but like they beat CLG's academy team, and then they won a tiebreaker where FlyQuest, and also FlyQuest, as soon as they picked their comp, I knew that they were going to lose the game. FlyQuest cannot play that style. They need to play scaling. They need to play multiple forms of hard engage, and that is just not something that they're going to really be able to do. Like, play that game where they have no real engage at all, because that style is even hard for like TL to pull off, where you have no engage. You have to slam lanes. You can't make mistakes. And FlyQuest is not that clean of a team. So EG did have some really good final games, but I don't know, man. I have a lot of concerns about how this team works together. They seem to be incredibly inconsistent. They don't seem to be on the same page. I feel like they have a lot of drafting problems. As far as the teams in playoffs, like, I have the least confidence in their drafting out of probably like every team in playoffs, because they just seem to not really do cohesive game plans, where it's like a lot of times through the first round, or even through the first 4 picks, I kind of feel like, oh, I get where they're trying to go. Oh, they're building like a dive comp or something, or oh, they want to team fight front to back. And then often their last pick or their last 2 picks are just like completely disconnected from what it feels like the point of the composition is. And at that point, I'm just like, do you not like know what the comp is supposed to do, or are you just picking for comfort for lane, or are you not even taking into consideration? But it just feels like they have a lot of these kind of drafts where you're just like, how do you win this game? It's such a narrow win condition. The Volibear Graves game from like last week or the week before was a really good example of that, where it was like a 5th pick Graves, where it's just like they had set up almost to dive, and then they grab this Graves last, and it's like, okay, well, now all you can do is try to get way ahead top lane and invade the Hecarim and put him down. But like, if you don't turbo slam the early game, there's no chance to win. I just feel like they have a lot of those where it's like super narrow win conditions, and they're not clean or coordinated enough to like win with those drafts. So I just don't have a lot of confidence in them.
You? So for EG, when you say they're not a good team, I also think team is about being how good you are compared to the sum of your parts, and I don't think that they elevate each other at all.
Yeah,
they don't seem to be like, oh wow, well, I didn't think this player was going to be that good, but now in this team he looks great. Like, and I was checking a lot of stats for the junglers since we were doing the all pro voting. Like, Inspired actually has pretty nuts stats. If you like look at his kills and assists at 15, he's only died 5 times apparently pre 15 minutes.
I think that's the key. Is the early game isn't so bad for EG. It's when it all comes together and the team play.
They're individuals. They have great individual players.
Yeah. So like I'm looking at like, okay, JoJo, massive CSD. Danny, actually massive CSD. Inspired, insane stats. You know, I'm like, so eye test wise, I'm like, why is there this disconnect between like what these stats are saying to me and like when I watch them play, and they just don't ever seem. It's not like, oh, this insane kills and assist participation with JoJo's laning means that they take over the map and they like are invading. Like it just doesn't seem to add up to more. It's just like everyone's doing their own thing and their drafts are maybe good for lanes and whatnot. But
I think it's partially drafts too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they just don't do anything as the team.
Yeah, just completely agree. I mean, this one's way quicker than the last one.
All right, well then say something good about Team Liquid, man. we all just been poo-pooing EG.
Something good about Team Liquid. Core JJ, I know that people were worried that he would lose like votes for all pro voting or MVP or anything like that because he hasn't played as many games. I was like, that's bullshit. I am still voting for him. Like he definitely deserves it. I don't care about lower sample size. I don't need a bigger sample size. This man does so much. He makes mid laners play differently because he's in the game.
Top laners
have to play differently because he's in the game. You know, Core JJ ganks, puts more fear into laners, other lanes than even bottom lane, than junglers do. It's actually nutty. I think that is such a valuable thing, coupled with the fact that it feels like they always do level ones too. And I feel like Core JJ is a big part of that. So this team that has one of the most active supports for ganking, and Santorin's performing really well right now, jungler for ganking, is also doing level ones, trying to get so many, you know, like summoner spell advantages even, to open up ways to play the game early on. I feel like they're much more scary than past iterations where they would just play passively to scale. You know, they've got both the early playmaking, but then also Bwipo will come in and make those surprise plays towards the mid stages of the game too, and have, you know, different lane allocations than you're expecting, and come in for the engage and stuff like that.
The champion pools, I think, are just really kind of exciting for TL. That's like one of the biggest things that I've really enjoyed. You know, you talk about they're more aggressive. They're also more flexible. They're playing multiple play styles. Like when you look at Bwipo, how many champions he has played, it's pretty ridiculous at this point. He has 17, 18 different champions played throughout lock-in and spring, like a ridiculous amount. Bjergsen has one of the deepest champions pools and most different champions played as far as mid lane goes. Hansama, like, diversity for marksman is kind of a meme because like it had just been Jinx Felios every single game, but even him throughout lock-in and stuff, like he's actually, you know, racked up 10 different picks, right? So there's a lot of like one-offs that he's brought in. He's been bringing in the Ashe, you know, was one of the early adopters of that. So like they just feel so flexible, and they are playing at a very high level. I think they're massively favored. Another thing that always kind of hurts EG's case to kind of play with the big dogs is they're 0-6 against the top 3 teams. They didn't win any games against them during the regular season. They also got, what, 3-1 or 3-0?
3-0 hard in the finals.
In lock-in finals. So there's like a lot of kind of like build up of like, oh, you just always lose to TL. And I think EG has a lot of work to do to kind of like get to that next level. And I'm just interested to see if they can actually find a clear direction and play heavily towards one style. Like that's what I would like to see from EG. Just decide exactly what you want to do and kind of practice like one cohesive style, whether it's all in on early game or it's all in on 5v5 team fighting, just like something where your team comp has a very clear direction and you over-index in it and you try to beat TL in one way, you know? Because I think that's like their only chance.
Here's what I think. New patch, 3-0 EG.
Spicy. I like it, Mark. Bet?
Nope.
I'm all about it, Mark.
Get the hand away from me.
Bet?
Get that away from me. 3-0 TL.
Yep. I'm on 3-0 TL as well.
3-1. Wow, I'm crazy, guys.
Bro, calm down over there.
Yeah. I hope I am wrong about this. I really do. And I hope that EG can fix some of their issues, but it feels like they've had the similar problems throughout the whole year, which doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Mm-hmm. But if EG can challenge TL, then truly the playoff bracket becomes really, really exciting, because then there's so many potential matchups that are really good. But right now it does feel like we have a clear top 3. And I'm just excited to see, you know, if anyone kind of buck that trend.
I always root for underdogs. Upsets, especially at the beginning when it's double elimination. I want both upsets.
You'll root for them, but you won't give them the confidence of a prediction. Maybe they need...
That's what makes them underdogs, Mark. If I predict them, if I give them a better chance to win, then they're no longer the underdog.
They're still underdogs because it's outvoted 2-1.
No.
Put your faith in them, Kobe. That's what they need. They need belief.
Kobe's vote is the one that counts.
I only care about mine.
Kobe's metrics are only dependent upon his opinion.
They're an underdog because I said
Kobe's
so.
an underdog now. He's plummeting.
I think I hit the drop button on the chair with my foot. Anyways.
I'm getting excited.
End us strong, Mark.
Do you want me to do the outro? Am I doing the outro? I don't know.
Wrap it up. Get some good points out here. Pew, 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 pew.
I'll wrap it up for us for now. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive for beautiful outros such as this one. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm. Remember to submit your questions. We love hearing from you on Twitter, YouTube comments, and on Anchor.fm. If you're giving us Twitter questions, remember to use the hashtag TheDiveLOL. That's how we actually can search for these, because sometimes I see someone sends me a cool question during the week, but then I can't find it later on because we don't have the hashtag for it. So if you use the hashtag, we can actually search on Twitter for the hashtag and pull your questions from that.
And I did get a couple, I got an email from someone asking how to ask an Anchor question. So we should put the link to anchor.fm/The Dive. I just made that up. Don't know if that's correct.
If you just Google anchor.fm, The Dive, you will find the link.
Exactly. That's what I did.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly what the URL is either, but it comes up right away. So it's pretty easy. But LCS playoffs starting 1:30 p.m. PST, Cloud9, 100 Thieves. Fans are back. Don't miss it.